What a year it's been. We've seen freakish alien hybrids, Joker getting that Diddy treatment, comic accurate Wolverine, and plenty of scripts made by no other than your favorite AI. And with this year being filled with delays along with rushed studio interfered projects, it turned out to be an alright year. No doubt I was disappointed many times, but what more can you expect? If Hollywood was still on strike, we would still be waiting for Venom: The Last Dance. Yeah, no, I'm good. But hey, with all that in mind, I want to highlight the highs of this year as well as the lows, as I will be giving you my top 10 for each category. Before we get started, I have a plethora of films that I have not seen. So before we start, let me give these films some recognition, even if they're good or bad. Inside Out 2, Despicable Me 4, The Wild Robot, Megalopolis, The Brutalist, We Live in Time, Trap, Saturday Night, Transformers 1, and Wicked. That's 10 movies right there. And I'm sure there's more, but hey, I was only able to see 42 movies this year, whereas last year, I saw 55. I realized that through sitting through so many bad movies, some of them are just not worth checking out. But I was still able to find 10 movies that were bad, so here's my 10 worst. The title in itself shows you how much they wanted to throw this movie away. Now, before I shit on this film, I want to say that this and Dune Part 2 was the only two films I saw twice this year. Now, that just shows you how much that film sucked, because even after seeing it twice, I hate it as much. I mean, compared to the other films on here, you can find some enjoyment, but it's still a slop fest that manages to end the trilogy in the most out-of-character way possible. It's cheap, and it still managed to be successful, which is the problem with a lot of these studio films. But compared to the other Venom films, this is not the worst, which is not saying much. What a drag of a film. It started off great, and it had me somewhat in suspense for what this killer vampire kid can do, but this was just an example of a director being too comfortable with their work. Now, this is a duo that was behind the Scream movies and the Ready or Not movie, which they managed to make a 2-hour film about the methods that worked in those films, and instead of making something unique, it just ends up being really repetitive.
Please, Emma, stop!
This was just disappointing. A great trilogy was at the hands of Ty West, but it just took one ending to shit the bed and ruin everything. Mia Goth, I love you, girl, but your performance was not it. It feels too out of character, and I get it. She's traumatized from the incidents of X, but I felt like I was watching a fan film of what could have been Maxine. Ty West, you have a lot to make up for, as you had everything at your power to make something great, but sometimes when it seems easier, it can be worse. And that's Maxine.
Kung Fu Panda.
Why? Why was this needed? You had a perfect ending with the last one, and instead of improving upon the last films, you make a film that has no substance in it. You take away the main crew who carried the films, and you add a new character that, oh, it gets worse, it's voiced by Awkwafina. You just wanted the money, and you got it, but at what cost?
He was in the Amazon with my mom.
Yeah. Do I even have to say anything? Why is this a thing? And it's worse than how it sounds, and for the two people who saw this film, I'm sorry for you. At first, I thought this was a fun film that didn't need to be taken seriously, but when you look back and break down the performances and the story, it's laughable. Nothing makes sense, and for a film that's called Madam Web, you make no use at all of the comic character, and you just try to set something up at the end, and it goes absolutely nowhere because not even Sony wanted this movie to be connected to their universe. And you just wasted me and millions of other people's time, which it's not cool, Sony. The first film I saw this year, and it really set the standard. Blumhouse does what they do best by making shit into diarrhea, and they won't stop because year after year, one of their films ends up at the bottom of the barrel. But you know what doesn't? The money it makes. So, fuck you, Blumhouse. The third Sonyverse film on here, and I haven't even gotten to the top 3. And this film is the reason why the Sonyverse is done, because after so many failures, no one wants to give it a chance, and that's why it's flopping. Talk about Madam Web not making sense. This film doesn't even have a proper third act, and it's a superhero film, or a supervillain film, whatever you want to call it. This was never meant to see the light, but it did, and I just took a shit and flushed it down the toilet, because I think my asshole can make something more aesthetic than the Rhino's design. And talk about wasting good actors like Aaron Taylor Johnson and Russell Crowe. An absolute shame. I never thought one of my favorite horror films would be ruined, but it did. And Lionsgate does what they do best by opening the floodgates of shit and pouring it down my veins while I watch this film. Take away all the mystery of the original film and remake the same exact story with worst protagonist, as well as an execution that does not deliver in any area but being bad. The fact that there's supposed to be 2 more films, yeah, no, cancel them. This was a failed experiment.
No. Wait.
Imagine a film so laughable that you can't even fathom the words to describe this. It's an absolute nightmare, as you have Lionsgate and Blumhouse making a film together. That is an assault! I'm not kidding. They take a horror film and they Marvelify it. There's portals, not kidding, horrible jokes, shitty CGI, and a final boss battle. Never again, please. Some of you may be shocked by this selection, but I'm not, because I knew the second the credits hit that this was going to be one of the worst films of this year. These movies are never good, but at least they can be fun, right? Now, maybe it's because I've never seen one of these films in theaters, and this time I did, and wow, did this feel like I was in 120 Days of Solo. Making the main characters Kong and Godzilla would be cool, but when you give them nothing to do, this just feels like the most cash grab story yet. The human characters are even worse, and this film takes all the fear out of these mythical creatures, which at this point, we should not know this much about these monsters. Just have them be unknown. That's why it works. These films are not meant to be Transformers. And even if it is, it's so repetitive seeing that human and monster or robot relationship. Look at a film like Godzilla Minus One. That's how a monster movie should be done, not this studio BS. Whew. We did it. We got through the shitstorm, and now we get to see brighter days. I have to say, this year was filled with lots of mediocrity, which is unusual because I always feel like I'm struggling to determine what the best 10 movies were. But this year, I couldn't even find 10 that I liked. I'm just kidding. I found 10 that I liked, and here are the best films from 2024. There was no thought in my mind that this was going to be a top 10 movie from this year. However, this is how you do a prequel. You introduce a familiar concept, except you give us interesting characters to help rediscover said concept, and you find out that this thing was the beginning of what we know it is today. Great performances, truly, and a great job of keeping me engaged and scared, which very few films have done for me this year.
The juice is loose.
I was scared for this film because I thought this was going to ruin the original, but it just reminded me how fun of a director Tim Burton was. He gives us nostalgia to crave about, and he introduces lots of new lore into such an imaginative world. Nothing beats the performance of Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice, and it was nice seeing a return to form, as well as seeing new faces like Jenna Ortega. One of the better theater-going experiences this year, but nothing compares to the next one.
Out your fucking mouth!
A Bad Boys movie being a top 10 film? Yeah! How can you hate this film? Will Smith and Martin Lawrence have killer chemistry, and this film manages to take all the good things from the other ones and expand it by having intense action scenes, jokes that are on a whole new level, which the whole audience absolutely loved. 4 Bad Boy movies in, and this is probably the best one.
Man, I love Latina.
Netflix movies have been at a low, but when you have Richard Linklater directing, you have some promise, and Hitman showed. I have never been so happy watching a movie at home. I was surprised by Glenn Powell's range to play these different hitmen, and the fact that this is a thriller, but at hindsight is a rom-com, is just pure genius. Him and Adria Arjona's chemistry is something that is hard to capture on film, and is what drove this film to be one of the best movies from this year.
My Shayla. My Shayla.
Horror had its lows, but when it was high, it was high. And Smile 2 was one that delivered. Talk about doing jump scares in a way that never makes you feel so much fear, because you know that the second it hits you, it's going to shake your world. Naomi Scott's performance is Shelley Duvall levels of losing your mind. She adds to that dread that we feel when we see that figure smiling across the room. And what this film sets up for the third one is something that I'm actually looking forward to. Plus, this film gets bonus points for having that 2010 pop star feeling, which we've been missing in our pop culture.
Control yourself!
I think the theme of this year is losing your mind, but how about losing your body for a new one? The Substance is one of the most original films that we have gotten in a while, and it has created a whole lot of pop culture for the masses to enjoy. In a world flooded with beauty that's so perfect you question whether it's AI or these celebrities are going through some ungodly transformation. That concept is explored to the max, and we see some body horror that is more traumatizing since the days of Tusk. But it works, and I want more original concepts.
Gay.
A film that I thought would bounce to the other side of the net and be forgotten, but man, was this the game of the decade. Mr. Guadagnino, I didn't know you had the sauce like that. And Miss Zendaya, you have solidified yourself as one of the best actresses working right now. And it's time to book you up. The score by Trent Reznor makes this all the more exciting as we have such an erotic, intense thriller that surrounds a game of tennis, and it just shows you that anything, even as boring as tennis, can be exciting. It just takes a good director and a script to do so.
I'm coming. Lois.
Robert Eggers, you do it again, and you remake one of the most iconic horror movies, but you make it better. That is damn near impossible, but wow, I understand the magic of this vampire tale. Bill Skarsgård brings this character to life and horrifies me for the whole 2 hours as his presence is dooming and you feel that fear that the other characters feel. Eggers crafts 1838 Germany into a dreamlike world that is so hard to describe that only breathtaking visuals can be used to describe it. And Lily Rose Depp, I didn't know you had it in you to put on a performance as crazy as this. A film review that was a return to my YouTube channel, and I just could not get enough of Honora. I mean, literally, please, Mikey Madison, I'm 7 feet tall with a Russian accent, and I got a Brooklyn home that's 5 times bigger than Vanya's. There is so much energy captured in this film, whether it's from the chaotic arguments or the new love felt between Annie and Vanya as they rule the world in the week that they spend with each other. It's a film that I want to live in, except I changed my mind when that fantasy is killed, which I found this to be one of the most heartbreaking films of this year. And it's not for its dramatic nature, but for its reality, which is all the more horrifying. Point blank, Sean Baker's a great director, Mikey Madison's a great actress, and the two of them made something that will be remembered for a while. I mean, what else was it going to be? If you would have told me in January of last year that Timothée Chalamet was going to be an Oscar-nominated actor, I would have turned the other way. I am wrong. A performance that has shaken the room because how are you going to go from a boy to one of the most powerful men in Arrakis? It's crazy because I find the first Dune movie to be one of the most boring films ever, but I understand it now. Dune 1 was built up for one of the most greatest sequels since The Dark Knight. All comes to fruition because Denis knows how to direct a sci-fi film, and he also just knows how to make films that are for the big screen. And in case you missed this film, I'm sorry for you. No film has moved me like this, and Dune 2 clearly has. So it's the best movie of 2024. That was it. A lot to take in, but look, I want to say that no movie comes easy to make, and the films that were really good this year are the utmost impressive. It's hard to make a film so grand for an audience that's surrounded by media, and the fact that there's people who can put everything aside and watch your film is unreal. That's what I strive to do, and 2025 will be another year filled with struggles, but it will come at the cost of accomplishments that I will build upon my journey. Whatever you may be doing, I hope you continue your journey, and even if it's a rough road, you can turn around and find a new path, because there's always a way. Happy New Year's, and enjoy the ride.